How's it going, everybody? My name's Eric, and I just successfully completed my first fuse repair on a rice cooker that wouldn't turn on. Before we get into the tutorial, I actually want to give you a couple of tips. The model we were working on was a JNP-1800 by Tiger. More than likely, this video will help in replacing a fuse on a different model or a different make, but there will be slight variations that you'll have to adapt to accordingly, which brings me to my first tip that I actually want to get into before the tutorial, which is know what you're comfortable with and your risk tolerance and your level of experience. There's multiple ways to do this. As you'll see, there's a little bit of soldering involved the way I chose to do it. You could also crimp. You could probably also do a different method, but I just chose to solder, and my soldering is kind of junky in this video. Do this at your own risk. Watch the entire video through. Make sure you order the right part, because I actually ordered a fuse that had a lower thermal break point than what was in the rice cooker. It shouldn't harm anything. If anything, it would just trip earlier, so I think we're good. And be careful with this, because the fuse is what keeps this from overheating. So don't bypass the fuse. You really have to replace the fuse for it to be safe. If you have a voltmeter, check for continuity. As soon as you know where the leads to the fuse are, check for continuity to make sure that it is indeed the fuse that is broken. It could possibly be something else, but the fuse is most likely the problem. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, please give the video a thumbs up. If you have any questions, comments, you want to tell me how awful of a job I did, throw it in the comment section. And let's save this Tiger rice cooker from the trash. Tiger rice cooker that will not turn on. Problem that we're having is when it's plugged in and we press down, nothing happens. So we're going to open up the bottom, replace a fuse, and hopefully get it working again. You are dealing with electronics, so know your skill level or ask for help from a friend or a family member. I am not liable for any injury or death due to your failure to do this repair. And with that disclaimer being said, let's take out these two bottom screws. Just a normal Phillips head. Super easy to get to. One screw was here, one screw was there. Put those to the side and then take off this bottom. So here's what the innards of a rice cooker looks like. And what we're looking for is the fuse, which for this model, it's gonna be an extra layer of insulation on the braided wire. And it's over here. You can see right there and right there are the insulations, and it's kind of bent like a U into the machine and then coming back. That's all one cable, and you'll see once I get that out. All I have to do is take out this screw right here. This little holder just pops up, and you can kind of pull it out. Pull it through the insulation. There's a fuse right in here. We're going to unscrew this and then put the hardware to the side. This insulation is what contains our fuse. We're gonna take off these contact ends down here just to make it a little bit easier to work on. Take a picture or take note of where they go so you can reference it when you're reassembling. Now we're gonna put this to the side for now. And this is what we're gonna be working on. We're gonna pull off that insulation. Here is our thermo fuse. If you have a voltmeter, you can test the fuse while it's still in the machine if you can get the right contacts, or you can test it when it's out of the machine. And if you don't have a voltmeter, you're just gonna have to assume that it is the fuse if your machine is not turning on. The fuse itself will have some numbers on it. 157 degrees. It says 10 amps, 250 volts. So you're gonna wanna order replacement of whatever you have. I went to Amazon and I found a listing that actually had a bunch of these thermo fuses, and I paid $6 for 30 pack of thermo fuses. Unfortunately, I ordered 142 degrees Celsius. This is 157 degrees Celsius. However, I'm not gonna return them and wait for another one. I will put a link to the listing in the description. They have a bunch of different degrees to select from, so depending on your rice cooker and what fuse you need, you can order it very easily through that link. So how you're gonna remove and reattach the new fuse is gonna be totally up to you and what tools you have at your disposal. Ideally, you're going to want to cut it and then recrimp. That would make the best contact, but we're going to cut the fuse and then I'm going to bend and then kind of bend those fuse ends together. We're gonna just solder that connection. I'm gonna clip off the extra ends. It's not pretty, but this is DIY. So the second one, I'm just gonna solder it end to end, see what happens. Okay, so there's the two joints. Not pretty at all. A crimp would have been better. I'm gonna slip this little cover back over. You do have to be strong enough joints to be able to withstand the bend. Now we're going to reinstall that little holder. I had to go back to my video to look how to reinstall all of these together. So it was, this little arm had different levels depending on the model, and my level was all the way to the bottom. The fuse was facing towards the hook, and then the back was this black thing with some crud on it, and that was facing downwards, which is towards the top of the rice cooker. Do keep in mind the orientation of this when you are removing yours, because the placement of the fuse has to do with safety. It has to do with the fuse being blown if it gets too hot, being at a certain level. So it's all within Tiger's design. And if you don't do it right, it could cause some harm or failure within the fuse and you'd have to replace it again. I'm going to have to change the direction because the arms were too short on one side. So keep in mind the orientation of yours, and then you won't have to make the same mistake that I did. My yellow was too short to reach over here. We just did a little flip-flop. Oops, did we just lose a screw? Now we're gonna reattach that screw. And you do wanna make sure that you're tucking the fuse all the way as far down and in as it's supposed to be, because again, the height of the fuse has to do with the thermoprotective properties. Now we're gonna reattach our yellow, goes over here, and then we're gonna reattach our blue lead. And with all of that reattached, we're going to put this bottom cover back on. This has a little lip that I have to tuck into this side first, and then it just sits like that. Reattach these two screws. And let's plug her in and see if we get power. There we go, look at that. We have the keep warm light, the cooking light. It looks like it is now working. Before we had absolutely no power. So we saved this machine from the trash. Hopefully this video was helpful. Do be careful when working with electrical stuff. If you are a professional repairman, please don't destroy me too much in the comments. Yeah, my solder joints are ugly. I don't have the crimp tools here. That joint's not gonna get any stress on it, so I think it'll be all right. I used a fuse that was a lower temperature rating than that was in here, and if anything, it will blow earlier than what it was designed for, so I don't think it will be a problem. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, please give the video a thumbs up. If you aren't already subscribed to the channel, consider subscribing, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye.